Well, hello guys. Today's video is going to be on the IRIS-T, which is, in my opinion, the new best SPAA in the entire game. It just absolutely crushes all of the casts, as you'll see in the footage in the background when we get into the video. Now, I spent over 10 hours grinding this thing, so please like and subscribe, look at the lovely vehicle, and we'll get into the video. So, I won't go into too much detail about how the new SPAs actually work in this video. If you do want an overview of the basic principles of how they work, I'm going to link up in the top right now the dev server video of when I went over that. Now, just bear in mind that some small things will have changed since then, like the UI and things like how far away you can place the launcher vehicle. But the basic principles of how they work remain exactly the same. So again, if you want a basic overview, go check out that video. In this video, we're going to talk specifically about the IRIS-T. So, what do you get with the IRIS-T? Well, as you can see, the radar is gigantic and very powerful. It's also able to guide 6 separate missiles onto 6 different targets at the same time. You also get 2 launcher vehicles, each with 8 missiles and a little reloading crate. This gives you a total of 32 shots without even needing to go to the capture point to reload. In most cases, this is going to cover you for the entire match. I can't think of a time when I actually ran completely out of missiles playing this thing. Obviously, if you're wanting to intercept munitions, like for example Mavericks, you are going to eat through ammo more quickly. But even in cases where I did that, I never ran out of ammo fully, and as you'll find out soon, they don't usually get in range to fire the Mavericks in the first place. Anyway, speaking of eating through ammo, let's talk about the ammo, the missiles. This system only entered service in 2005, and it has all the bells and whistles you'd expect of a modern system. That includes a thrust vectoring heat seeker that can pull 40 Gs. The rocket motor also burns for a full 7 seconds, giving you insane acceleration to the max speed of Mach 3. In theory, this thing can reach out and touch you at a range of 40 kilometers, but in practice the range is going to be shorter because of its maneuvering, and the target's never just going to be flying in a perfectly straight line where you can go clap them at 40 kilometers. Like, it's much like the R-77, the Soviet air-to-air missile, where like in theory it has much longer range, but because it maneuvers quite hard, it doesn't really ever reach that range. A realistic max range, you're looking at more like 15 to 20 kilometers, which still puts it in the same ballpark as like the Pantsir, but the guidance is so much better. And that might sound crazy if you've seen or played against the Pantsir, but the guidance is infrared for a start, but it also has inertial guidance, GPS guidance, and data link. And also, on top of all of that, it has probably the best IRCCM in the entire game, which is countermeasures. So flares basically do nothing. Realistically, the only way you're dodging this thing is by breaking line of sight with the missile itself using the terrain, or by just turning tail and running away and just outrunning the thing. Which isn't easy, honestly, in and of itself, but still, you can do that. With the specs out of the way, it's honestly kind of hard to put in words just how good this thing is. They actually had to move the spawn for planes out all the way to 25 kilometers and put it like quite close to the ground, like maybe a kilometer off the ground. So when you spawn in planes now, you are actually out of range of SPAAs. Because at that kind of range, usually there's terrain or there's trees or houses or something in the way so that you can't actually see the planes when they spawn in. Like with the old air spawn, much like the Pantsir, you'd be able to just blast things straight out of the sky. But the difference is because this has infrared as well, you launch on something 15 kilometers away, even if it dives down onto the deck, it's not guaranteed to escape. Because that's the difference with this thing. Even if the radar loses you, even if you hug the ground, if this thing can see you, it's still coming. And by the way, in real money, in real life, you're looking at €500,000 per shot. And this thing can fire a rocket every half second. That's €4 million of missiles coming at you in just as many seconds. And honestly, the price tag reflects the capability of the missile. You've also got to bear in mind that this thing outranges any CAS option that we currently have in the game. Like, I'm talking about something that can actually lock onto you, like a Maverick or a HAR-38. So if they actually want to get in range to get a solid lock off on you, the pilot has a choice. They can either hold course with an IRIS in the air, flying at them at Mach 3, or brake and dive for the deck. Which means in reality, they don't really have an opportunity to get those munitions off before you were ready to just launch at them. And because it has track while scan, it's not like the older SPAs where you have to actually lock them up and then fire and go through the whole thing and guide in the missiles. This thing doesn't even have optics. You just highlight them with track while scan and yeet off a missile and off it goes. You don't need to do anything else. Now, you might still be vulnerable from pop-up attacks from Eurofighters or Rafales. These have laser-guided missiles, essentially, so that you can highlight an area on the minimap and then fire it, and then only pop up at the last second before it's going to land to dial in the exact location of the target you're trying to kill. But that's the thing, even if they're only popping up for a second, if you're quick, you can lob off an IRIS at them and there's not really a lot they can do about it. I personally didn't encounter this once. I mean, obviously I'm playing Germany, but France and Britain also have this capability, so. But yeah, even if they're only visible for a short amount of time, you still have plenty of time to fire off a missile or two. And it lofts. These are vertical launch systems, so it lofts up into the air. And then it's going to be looking down at them. And flaring is almost impossible because of how crazy the IRCCM on this thing is. So I feel pretty confident in saying, at least from the experiences I had playing it, that the old CAS meta is completely dead and gone. Like, there's no way you're just going to be able to come in at altitude and fire off a bunch of Mavericks or HAR-38s or whatever. And that's the thing as well. Bear in mind, even if you do manage to get off these munitions, especially Mavericks, they're very slow. So, yeah, there's not really a whole lot you can do to stop them just blasting all of your munitions out of the air anyway. One thing I'll also add is in terms of helicopters, every helicopter I've engaged, I've clapped. I don't think there's really anything that a helicopter can do. I mean, to the point of being completely useless. Because they obviously rely on terrain, right? Ducking up and down in front of terrain. And against the older SPAAs, there wasn't really any counter to that. But with the IRIS, this missile, again, it's going to follow them over that terrain because it lofts way up into the air. So it's going to be so much more difficult to break line of sight with it using the traditional helicopter methods. So I'd even go as far as to say is that top tier helis might just be useless. I haven't played any helicopters at top tier. Like, I might take out my Car 52 and then like do a follow-up when I'm talking about playing against these systems from the perspective of an attacker. But again, it still seems pretty obvious to me that you're just gonna get clapped. And while the IRIS-T is the best system, I'm pretty sure the other top tier SPAs they've added have quite a nasty bite as well. Because while I was grinding this thing out, I did still die to CAS, but it was so much better than before. The amount of times I died was like a fraction of what it used to be. with the old cast just constantly hammering you over and over again. Like Gaijin have really been chipping away at the dominance of CAS, and I actually found myself having quite a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that vehicles like the IRIS-T are a huge stride in the right direction. Really, yeah, it's completely solved the CAS problem. Now, if you want to be a CAS pilot, you're going to have to be good, you're going to have to be lucky, and the player on the ground always is going to have an answer. Which is probably the way it should be, considering that ground is a game mode for, well, ground vehicles, right? Where in the old it was more like Air RB with extra steps. So, that's my IRIS-T review. I would say, by the way, it's mandatory in a top-tier Germany lineup to run this thing. It's the best SPAA in the game. It's a sky-clearing monster. And honestly, it's just a lot of fun to play. So, thank you for coming, guys. Why don't you check out this next video linked up above?